what do we want for our kids? As you think about raising your children, think about it this way. You have 13 years until they become teenagers, don't you? At that time, they get more input, they get more influence from their peers sometimes than they do from us, from mom and dad. So I had in my mind, as I raised my kids, a certain goal that by the time they were 13 years of age, if something should happen to me, I would have given the input that I should have given. I would then be able to move off. If God should see that I would have to move off the scene, they would have the tools. All right, what do we want? What do we want by the time they're 13 years of age? What is it that is our goal? Well, I think one of the big things we want is to have our kids learn how to make wise choices, don't we? Isn't that, if we had one big headline, the thing that is most helpful to a mature adult is knowing how to make wise choices? And of course, right under that comes the wisest choice of all, right? To serve the Lord Jesus. But we're going to teach our children how to make wise choices. Well, that means that we're going to have to do a lot of training and explaining, aren't we? We can't just say, well, this is the way it is, and you do it because I'm bigger than you are. Because, that'll only work for a little while. Pretty soon they'll get bigger than you are. And we don't want to train our children just to be, yes, Mom, I'll obey. You can come into my house and it can be very well organized. I can have real control. But what happens when they leave my house and I no longer am in control? Have I given them the tools to make wise decisions? Don't we want to teach them how to handle money? Isn't that one of our goals too? We want to teach them how to have an honest day's labor and what it is to handle our finances. We want to teach them how to be generous, how to tithe, how to be interested in mercy ministry. We want to teach them how to budget their finances. So we've got a goal to teach them about finances. How about relationships? Don't we want to teach them about relationships, how to value friends, how to value one another? Don't we need to give them the skill to resolve conflict? Can they watch mom and dad resolve a conflict and get the tools for conflict? Or do you know how quick you could duck from the frying pan? So we want to teach them how to resolve conflict. We also want to recognize that by the time they're 13 years of age, their bodies are ready for multiplication. Therefore, we have got to teach them about their own bodies, about sexuality, and we have to teach them about self-control. All of that has to be taken care of before that time, because that's when all those hormones are getting ready to say go. And you can't teach it when the day they turn 13. It's a part of a lifestyle that we have taught them. We want to teach them that they're unique, created in God's image. Not your image, created in God's image. Not that they have to take over the family business. Not because they have to be just like Dad. Because they're not created in Dad's image, so they may look a lot like Dad. They are created in the image of God. And in each one of us is a God-given talent. For some, more than one talent. We want to have a passion by the time that kid's about 13 years of age, that he recognizes there's something unique about him. And if at all possible, we want to have already seen that. We want to have commended it. And we want them to recognize that they are unique. And so we want to give them understanding about so many of the areas of choices. I just want to look at my notes and see if I have a few more here that I wanted. To value hard work and a job well done. A lot of people don't know how to work, don't know that it's really fun to work and do it well. Where are they going to learn that? And of course, for those of us in this mission, I want them to know the joy of the missionary call. We also want them to have an appreciation for the local church because that's part of the body of Christ. But the joys that we have as missionaries, to value their own culture, to understand it and value it, but at the same time have a great appreciation for the wonderful way God created other people. And to have them learn from us the joys of other cultures. We want them also to have had an opportunity to understand social niceties, to be able to have good manners, to understand protocol. That's one of the things that's also going to happen to them while they're learning about others' cultures. They're going to recognize that there are other cultures that have different kinds of protocols. And instead of saying, oh, we don't like that, it's, oh, isn't it fun to find out how wonderful the differences are? Because they see that. They understand that. I would also want my children to value friendship, to learn from me and see in me what a good friend can be. When my kids were real little, and they just seemed to be all over the place, and I just was being a little upset and irritated with them, I saw this lady who was cute and was in her right mind, and she had 8 children. And so I went to her, and I talked to her. And I said to her, how did you do this? I said, you've got really nice kids, and you look like you made it all right. And she gave me a word that was a rhema word for me. And that was, I made a friend out of each one of my children. And that kind of became a watchword for me. Because I really value friends, and I think I know how to be a good friend. And so when my little kid's pulling on my skirt and I'm irritated with him, I think, would I treat a friend like that? And I used that friendship grid. I kind of got a real special blessing a year ago when I got my birthday cards from both my kids. They weren't one of those special cards that say, to Mom, but both of them had chosen cards to a special friend. I thought, oh God, you did it. And I have to say to you, my children really are 2 of my most special friends, people that I value. But I was really pleased that it went both ways. And we want to introduce them to the friend that sticks closer than a brother, right? And so let's consider also, when I've just mentioned these things that are important to us, of course we want them to do well academically. We want them to understand about learning and have the joy of learning. As I've mentioned these things, you can see we've got a really big job, don't we? And actually, we've got a pretty short time to do it in. And one of the wonderful things that happens, friends, when you're a part of a fellowship, a part of a community, you don't have to do it all by yourselves. I'm so grateful for that. There are so many things that other people can do better than I can. And I can bring in their help to me. And we have this great extended family. And so we want to pursue that. We want to be committed now to our children, getting them to that age of 13, learning how to make the wisest choice possible, letting them know that there is a friend that sticks closer than a brother to us and to them. And we'll look forward in these next sessions to walking that through, all right? We've been talking about what it is that we want to train our children in. How do we want our young adults to turn out? We've listed some of those things. As we've been making this list, think about what we talked about and think about the 10 Commandments. Bible tells us that we aren't to have any other idols before us. We want to make sure that our kids understand that idolatry is the thing that God speaks against more than anything else. So we want to make sure that we don't have any idols in our lives, and we don't make our children idols, and we don't make their education idols, and we don't make anything else idols, because we're to have no other idols before us. It talks about, one of the 10 Commandments is about keeping the Sabbath day holy. Are they going to understand what it is to pace our time? That they're not going to be involved with workaholics, but we are going to pace our time, and we're going to have a Sabbath, and we're going to remember to keep God's day holy. Not to take the name of the Lord in vain. Murder. Thou shalt not murder. Murder is the result of rage, an inability to resolve conflicts in a proper way results in murder. Are you going to teach your young people? Are they going to see in your lives how to resolve conflict, that they won't be people that become violent and have rage because they have good communication skills? That kind of violence and rage, friends, often happens because people feel they've been unjustly treated. Are they going to be able to see in your lives, in what you do, that God is truly kind and just? Thou shalt not commit adultery. Will they have an understanding that faithfulness in marriage is the highest standard possible and the best thing that God could ever told us about? That being faithful to one another is wonderful. And all the joys and the intimate side of marriage is something that God designed, and it's worth waiting for. Are they going to see that in your life? Thou shalt not steal. Will honesty and integrity be something that they see modeled to them? It will never do for you to memorize the 10 Commandments and have the children memorize them. It's living it out. Thou shalt not covet. Are they going to see from you joy when the neighbors get something new? Are they going to hear in your conversation that something that you don't have and your neighbor has, you rejoice in it? We must teach the children the 10 Commandments. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God. The Lord is one. And you shall love the Lord your God with all of your heart, with all of your soul, and with all of your might. And these words that I command to you, they shall write them on your heart. Now, we're people that love God with all of our heart, with all of our soul, and with all of our might. We've come into this mission because God is so important to us, and we so believe in his calling. It's important to us to give it to the rest of the world. So I think we're people that it's in our heart to love God with all of our hearts. And you shall teach these things diligently. Diligent implies some work, doesn't it? To your sons. Now, how are you going to do that? You're going to have family altar in the morning from 8 to 8:15 and read a Bible story. You're going to have